welcome back to another video. Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for joining me once again. And today we have a story time, guys, and I just wanted, if you're faith, this is going to be one of those videos, a story time of one of those things. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to say it. All right. So oftentimes we have things that happen to us in life, and it's just some things that just leave an imprint in our hearts that causes us to always remember who God is. And God just always leaves that one significant thing. So whenever you go through something, He reminds you of, remember, I did that for you. If I did that for you, just think of the many other things that I will do for you and that I could do for you as well. So I wanted to kind of share this story with someone who's just going through something and just needed a reminder that God is still able, God is still willing, and that God will. He truly will if we just trust in Him. So I'm gonna start off the story time. Let's see where I'm gonna start off. It could be really long, guys. I promise you it is worth the listen if you could just wait till the end of this video. So prior to my current position, I worked at I still work at this current job, but I held another position. I was the site admin for the center, just making sure that everything runs smoothly, basically handling vendors, activities, to engagement activities, everything for the site. Now this position, I worked for a client that was extremely aggressive, and they were big on employee engagement. And I'm telling you, there was activity after activity. I never got a breather. I barely could take time off from work. I never got to celebrate my daughter's birthday. At some point they started asking me to work weekends, and that didn't really last long because it wasn't much for me to do on the weekend. But it was just very aggressive, and they were just always in your face. Here's an activity, here's an activity, here's this amount of money, I need you to come up with something. It was so busy, right? So I remember that this one day we had this activity. I forgot, it was something we were promoting at the job, and for legal purposes, I'm going to leave out any client's name that I worked for, and as well as the job that I currently regarding the client that I work for in a position, anything dealing with the client side of things. But this client was aggressive, and this particular day I was hosting an event for the site, and I had a DJ there, and different vendors came in and set up. I had chairs set up, we had tables there. I had to get food. So at this time I remember coming from Sam's Club to pick up some items that I had ordered for the event. So we had food and everything there. We were doing a barbecue that day, so I had to go pick up things for the barbecue. So I'm leaving the site. At that time I was so tired. I remember my daughter didn't sleep with me that night. She ended up sleeping with her dad because I had to be up at 6 a.m. to prep. And this is like a recurring thing that would happen. And so she wasn't with me. I ended up getting home like 11 something at night, that night from work, and then having to be back at 6 a.m. I came home, I think I got her some things or whatever, took her to her dad's and went to take a nap, and then woke up and I had to prep for the event. I was so tired, and I remember like just running into the site, just doing so many things. And as I was driving from Sam's Club, I had a mental breakdown. I remember just crying, and I'm like, God, I'm so tired of this job. I'm so tired. Like, I'm just drained. I'm completely drained. I can't do this anymore. I don't know how many years I can do this because I've been doing it for so long at that time. And I cried. I sat in my car and I cried, and I was crying. But I'm like, it's one of those, sometimes you have to just cry to let it out, but then you gather yourself together like, okay, I gotta keep going. So I cried, parked my car when I got back from Sam's, got out the car, started to move everything out the car, and I was like, you got to get it together. But I'm like, this job does not appreciate me. The current manager that I was under, oh my God, for some reason she had this thing where she would go to war with me. Like, she'll be okay with me for a while, and then she'll just start antagonizing me, and it was just so much that she would do to me. And throughout the story I'll tell you a little bit more, but at this point I felt like she wasn't very appreciative. There was another admin for another site that we had there, and she wouldn't do half of the things that I would do. But I was one of those things, I care so much about the employees there that I wanted them to enjoy themselves and to have a great time. So yes, I didn't have to go to Sam's. I could have just ordered something that came in, but it wouldn't be as great as the things, the barbecue I was setting up, making sure the DJ was there. Like, I didn't have to do that, honestly, because there were other sites that didn't do it. But I wanted it to be great for the employees. I wanted to make good use of the money, and I know that they would enjoy themselves and truly enjoy the space and the company that they work for. So I was passionate about it. So I was like, God, I'm tired. I'm gonna look for a job. But prior to then, I do remember there was at sometime in February of 2018, 19. I remember I had gotten a prophetic word from the job, and not the job. Sometime around 2018, February, I believe, of 2018 or 19, if I remember correctly, I had gotten a prophetic word indicating that basically that God understood my heart. Like, I'm putting myself out there. I'm doing so much. Taking in more than I could possibly intake. But God is going to come. Like, basically, God is in my realm. And He's going to come. And God is going to come see about me. So throughout time, I kept reminding. I didn't know what that meant at the time, but I just kept reminding myself, like, if God's going to come see me, like, it's got to be good. Like, something great is going to happen. God is going to come see about me. So I kept telling myself that. And I was so into my faith at the time that I'm like, although my manager was getting on my nerves and she was driving me nuts, I was like, I'm going to do this job unto the Lord. You understand? So I just kept trying to push myself to be great, to do great, and knowing that the employees always appreciate it, because they was like, Miss Wideline, thank you so much. This was great. The food was good. I knew that they appreciated me, and they appreciated it. And that's all I ever asked for. If I ever do anything for anyone, it's just appreciation. Just show me appreciation. So I cried about it, got out the car, handled the event. I do remember at some point I was in the break room setting up some things, and then someone came and got me, like, the manager is asking for you. So then the manager came and she called me in there. It was just quiet, so she was doing it was like a pep rally type thing that day. So she's sitting there with the employees and they're doing the whole rah rah rah, and I walk in and everyone's just quiet staring at me, and I'm like, okay, what happened? She's like, come here. And I'm walking and I'm like, and then she did the whole spiel thanking me for the event, which wasn't out of the ordinary, because oftentimes she will thank me. So I'm like, okay. And I'm still standing there. And then this, my friend from the job came and she walked up to me and she brought in this bag. And it was like a Mickey Mouse bag. And I'm like, okay, I got jokes. Like, I'm a whole adult. Y'all coming out with a Mickey Mouse bag, like a clear Mickey Mouse bag with the ears on it. So then I'm like, okay. She was like, oh, open the bag. So it was like, it had a little drawstring. I took out the drawstring, I opened it, and I looked in it, and it was basically a paper saying, I think it was a paper. It was saying that basically they're buying me tickets to go to Disney with me and my daughter. And that came upon me being upset at my manager, because at some point I had asked her for days off to take my daughter to Disney for her birthday, and she declined my request, stating that she needed me on site that time, which they could have done without me. Anyways, so I was excited, I was happy, and I felt like it was a moment of God saying, you know what, I got you. Despite it all, I got you. People see you, the work that you do or whatever. So I was happy, I took it, whatever. I did end up going to Disney with my daughter. We had an amazing time, turning into a family trip. So my daughter's ticket was paid for, and it was great. So the story doesn't end there. So I was happy, boom, boom, boom. Everything is going great at some point, right? And then we were actually combining two of the buildings at my job into one building, basically. So I was doing all the work, working with the vendors, the contractors, and everything, because it was breaking down walls, building, basically revamping the entire building so they can fit everyone into one building. So I'm telling you, it was crazy busy. It's like building a home, basically. I'm dealing with sorry guys, my hair it'll drive me crazy if I had like one strand out of place. That's the perfectionist in me, guys. Anyways, so I was working with vendors, contractors, and things, just getting the building together, because we had an end date where we needed to move everybody in. So I have a facilities manager who just basically doesn't do the things that I feel like he should be doing, part of his job duties. But I am one of those teammates, like, if you don't do your part, I just need to get it done. I'm a get it done type of person. So if you're not going to do your part, if it's going to hold me up from doing mine, I'm just going to get it done. I'm doing yours and mine at this time because I need it done. I need this in order for me to do my part. So I started just getting into so many things dealing with vendors. So I got upset. We ended up having to move everybody over, and at some point everybody ended up moving over. Things worked well. They thanked me for that as well. And I do remember this one specific day during this time period. I'm telling you, when I say I'm into my faith, I'm at church Tuesday, Friday, and as well Tuesday, Friday, and I was at church Tuesday, Friday. I was also in school finishing up my bachelor's degree for business management with a concentration in human resources. And then I was fasting a lot during that time as well. I had just really gotten into fasting. So I would fast and pray a lot. So during this time I would fast and pray a lot. And I remember like my manager at the time, she would just ridicule me. Like, she makes these little slick jokes. And she would be like, oh, guess you're back to eating beans again, right? Because I'll do the no fast where I would just eat fruits, no rice, no bread, no sweet juices, anything like that. So I'm fasting, and she'll come in the break room and kind of make jokes about it. But I do remember one time we were in the break room and I had this conversation with her, and I was just telling her, hey, I was just basically telling her, like, the night before, I remember having a conversation with my daughter. We were in the bed, and my daughter was just she was praying. I'm like, hey baby, pray. So she started to pray, and she was talking about how, do God choose your job? And I said yes. And she was like, oh no, I don't want God to choose my job. And I'm like, why not? Why wouldn't you want God to choose anything for you? Like, God always wants your best. You think God is going to give you something like a job that you hate, or a job that's just horrible? She was like, I don't know, but why can't I choose my job? I was like, baby, anything God chooses, you'll rather it then, because God thinks about it further on down the line as opposed to just right now. You're going to pick a job right now that is good for you because of the benefits right now, but God knows what's best for you 10 years from now, 5 years from now, if you're going to be at that job. So always trust God. And she was like, okay. So I was telling my boss about that conversation that I had with her, and I told my boss, I was like, you know, I sort of almost regret having my daughter at such a young age, or not getting my degree before I had her, because life is just so hard right now. Having to work full time, and this job being so demanding, and then having to be in college full-time as well, trying to finish up my degree. I don't get any time with my daughter at all, and still trying to balance out church. And that's one of the part of the prophetic word that I received as well. Like trying to handle my family issues, my personal issues, God issues, you know, my time with God and everything. I was just overwhelmed at the time. It was just so much. So then I was just telling her, like, I love my daughter and I love being a mom, but it's just, I feel like I'm not fulfilling my obligations to my daughter because I have so much more going on that side of just work, school, and everything else that I'm trying to do. So then I got so teary-eyed talking to her about it. Like, I was really stressed, whatever. But I'm eating my beans. I was really eating my beans. I forgot what it is, guys, but I got it from this vegan spot or whatever. So I was eating it, but I probably fasted like once a month or something like that. I was just fasting. I had a coworker, Sandra, who would fast with me as well. So we would just fast on things and pray about it. But God was really showing out during that time, each time I would fast. So while we're fasting, I remember one time me and my manager, we would go back and forth. At some point, I'll be very honest, I wasn't the best employee. Meaning, if you snapped at me, I'm snapping back. Meaning, if you said something disrespectful to me, I'm tick for tack. So I don't disrespect you first, but there are managers and people that you would work for and work with that would talk to you some type of way and think they'll get away with it. I'm always the person, I always feel as if I have to stop you the first time you do it, because if I don't, you're going to think that it's okay, and then you're going to continuously do it. My mom just raised me like that. So the first time you do it, I'm calling it out. So, but after I had gotten saved, I stopped with all that aggression. I just used to always trust God. Like, you know what, God, oh God, she just said something to me, God, but you know what, I'm going to bite my tongue. I'm going to keep it moving, because Lord, I'm representing God. So she would go at it with me, and I remember we used to fuss at each other. I've probably used profanity with her before. Like, I wasn't the best employee. Again, I always tell everybody that I'm very honest with that. Even my current employees now, I tell them I understand, you know, I wasn't the best employee, but I tell them what I've learned from that and how I've grown. So she was really the first person to take a shot at me and putting me in a management position, because everyone else just didn't want to work for me because they knew my attitude and how I was. I could, back then, I mean, that was in my I've been working since I was like 19 or 18 or 19 at the time. I've grown a lot since then, of course. And so I remember she called me into her office one day, and she was the boss that if she came in, you could tell what kind of attitude she was in, and you knew what kind of day you were going to have. If she comes in and she starts picking up stuff, throwing it in the garbage, just cleaning the floor, the production floor, and she starts like go in her office, close her door, it's going to be a bad day, meaning stay out of her way. So she called me into her office, and she was asking me questions that day about, oh, why wasn't this done? I'm like, that's not my part of my job. The office, the maintenance guy was supposed to do that. She was like, okay, did you ask him? Yes. Did you send him an email? Yes. Did you scream loud enough on top of your ears to say, help, help, help? I'm asking help. I'm like, well, I copied you on the email. She was like, okay, did I respond? I'm like, no. She was like, okay, did you walk in my office? Did you say you need help? I'm like, He's not replying to my email. Why are you upset at me? Like, did you ask him why he's not replying to my email? Why he's not doing his job? I'm not his manager. My title is beneath his title. Why am I having to tell him what to do and how to do his job? And I'm even giving him a reminder by sending him an email. That's not even part of my job. So she got upset, and then at some point, I felt like God tied my tongue, because I started to reply and she was asking me questions and I couldn't reply back anymore. I was replying in my mind, but the words weren't coming out, and I was getting frustrated. So she's sitting up there, she was like, oh, you know how much money we pay you? I ain't get anyone over here on the production floor behind you to do your job, and for less money at that. She was like, oh, so, you know, you haven't been upholding your responsibilities at this time, and you know what, this quarter you're not getting an increase. You're not getting a pay increase at all. And so I'm replying everything. She said, do you really want this job? Do you want to work here? Let me know if you want to work here. If you don't want to work here, let me know. So I'm replying back to her, and I kid y'all not, that day I would have quit this company if God had not tied my tongue, because I could not reply. And then, so I stayed quiet. I'm telling you, all these things she was saying, I just kept nodding my head. I'm looking at her like, I could not say anything. And then she's like, okay, I'm done. You're dismissed. Okay, I got up, went back to my desk, and I'm like pissed at this time. I turned around, looked at my coworker. She was sitting behind me, and now I'm shifting things. She was like, are you okay? And I'm like, nope. She was like, are you okay? I'm like, nope. So I got up and I left, and she followed me, and I went for a walk. And I was just telling her, explaining to her, I'm like, God tied my tongue. I was cussing. I was like, oh my God. No, I wasn't cussing at the time. I was just telling her, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I couldn't say anything. I wanted to reply back to her. She's so disrespectful. I'm so sick and tired of her talking to me like this. The only reason why she's doing this is because she know I got saved, and I'm not replying back to her anymore the way I used to. And now I feel like she's taking advantage of me. I said I worked so hard. It's funny how a couple months ago, I was such a good employee that I got sent to Disney, and you guys have never done that ever within this organization in my department. And you guys sent me to Disney, and all of a sudden, because you're upset that day because this person didn't do their job, although I've done everything else that I need to do, that I'm not even getting my increase. I'm like, yo, I don't even get a bonus. I don't get nothing at this job. This is the only thing that I get, and you're taking that away from me. I was so mad, and I'm like, I'm done. So she's holding me. She's like, it's okay. I'm like, ooh. But then the word came back. It's like, trust God. God is going to come see about you. God's going to come see about you. And I'm upset because I'm like, God, you keep saying you're going to come see about me, but nothing is really happening. I'm stuck at this job. At this point, I updated my LinkedIn account, and I was getting hits on LinkedIn. People were like literally writing me like, hey, how's it working at your job? We have a position available for you if you're looking for a change. But every time I would try to reply back to them, I would end up doing something, get distracted, and I never would send a message. So I went back to my desk, and I took a breather, and I just went back. I ignored her for the rest of the day. She's not going to come back to me. I left it at that. Now the business itself wasn't doing so well. The client itself wasn't doing so well, and I've worked there long enough to know that there's always a change coming when things like that happen. Either they're going to start laying people off, they're going to start sending employees home, or having everybody work part-time, half a shift. Something is going to change. So not too far from then, I kid you not, it could have been like 2-3 weeks from then, they ended up calling everyone up in the management staff into an office, and let me tell y'all, God is amazing, okay? God is amazing. God is a provider. Seek him. I'm telling you, God will come see about you in the time that you least expect it. Because all the other times I expected God to come through, God did not come through for me. He allowed me to handle things on my own. But this very day, I kid you not. So we walked into the office, and they're handing us our layoff paper, basically telling us in 30 days, with 30-day notice, we're going to get laid off. Was I prepared? Yes, I'll be honest with you. One of the things that I pride myself on, and it's one of the things that God has been dealing with me on, is thinking that I can handle everything on my own. Meaning that financially, even if I'm with someone and I know they're helping me out with my bills, I still have the money for my bills. I'm going to still have the money for my bills. I hope you understand that. Meaning, if my car note, if you say you're going to pay my car note is $300 a month. I'm going to take the $300 from you, but I'm also going to make sure that I have my $300 just in case you don't give it to me. And it can come off as me not trusting that individual. And it's the same way I live with my life. Not just with that, it's like I was already prepared. Point blank period, I was already prepared. I have this thing in my mind where I feel like I have to have at least 3 months worth of my total expenses, my livelihood, saved somewhere, so that in the event I do lose my job, I'm not having to ask someone for money, or having to move out of my place, or having to do anything. So I've always tried to save, and I've been like that at a very young age and a little bit more aggressive after I became a mom, because I feel like I have to just depend on me. I have others I can depend on, I'll be honest with you, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna make sure I'm good. That even if I decide that I don't want to have to ask somebody, I don't have to ask, I still got it. So I got the layoff papers. I wasn't so concerned about my bills. Oh my God, I'm not going to pay my bills, because I was already secured at that part where I knew that I was okay. But in the end, I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So my plan was, I was like, okay. So I read the paper. It kind of told me I've been working there long enough, more than over 5 years. So I got my severance. It was basically saying that I would get severance if they can't find a comparable position for me, and that they were going to, basically this is a 30-day notice, and that we would be laid off at this date, effective this date. I'm like, all right, cool. Whatever, cool. So then we sat there to ask if we had questions. No one really had questions. Some people asked questions regarding severance, you know, how that was going to work out, whatever. Would things change? Do they foresee things changing? I really honestly had zero questions at all. I just wanted to get out that room because I needed to breathe. Okay. So I was walking out the room holding, excuse me. So I was walking out the room. I took the paper and I kind of folded it in half, walking out the room. And as I was walking out the room, the HR manager walked up behind me and she whispered it behind me. She's like, can you meet me in my office? And so I was like, okay. And first thing in my mind is like, okay, I'm getting a 30-day notice. I need this 30 days. So I hope she's not coming to me. Yeah, I feel like that's on my lip. Okay. So she's giving me this 30-day notice, and I'm like, oh God, I hope she's not coming, you know, to reduce my 30 days or coming back with more. But I've had enough bad news for one day. Now, I take it back, because sometime a couple weeks prior to that, probably a month prior to that, I remember walking in the hallway, and the HR manager's desk was right by the production floor that I would work on. So I would pass her desk to get in and out if I walked by that door. And one day I was going to my desk, and she called me. She's like, hey, Wideline, come here. I walked in, and she was basically just asking me questions like, she was like, are you currently you're in school, right? And I'm like, yeah. And she was like, okay. She was like, what do you go to school for again? Remind me again. And I was like, business management with a concentration in human resources. She's like, oh, okay. She's like, how's that going? I'm like, oh, I have a couple of classes left. I'm almost done. I think I had like 6 classes at the time, 7, something like that. I was like, I'm right at the end of it, the tail end of it. I can see the finish line. I'm excited. And she's like, okay. And I'm like, she's like, okay. And she stopped. She's like, and she smiled at me. And I'm like, any reason why? She's like, no, nothing. Just wanted to ask. I kind of remember you were in college, but I couldn't remember what. Just wanted to ask. I was like, okay. Mind you, no one likes HR in any company. I didn't like her. I didn't have any personal issues with her, but I just know that was somebody I need to stay away from, because she makes a decision on my job, and she was very strict about business. So I didn't have anything personal against her, but there are decisions that she made that affected me sometimes. Like, they would move me from hourly to salary, and they would always tell me that she's the one that, oh, go see her because she made that decision. Or if I would handle certain things, she'll take it away from, oh, you don't handle that anymore. This person handles it, and I'm like, oh, HR made that decision. And it would just bother me. I'm like, why y'all keep taking things away from me? Why, you know, everyone else stays on salary, but couple months or 6 months I'm salary, then I'm back to hourly, and then when y'all notice that I'm making a little overtime, it's like, oh, now you're back to salary. And it was just crazy. So I didn't always agree with her decisions, or what they told me was her decisions, right? So I was like a little nervous, and the negative, and I think negative first, very pessimistic. I was like, oh my God. I was on tuition reimbursement at the time, and so I started to think, I'm like, she's probably gonna stop my tuition reimbursement. She's probably gonna take my tuition reimbursement away from me, and I'm gonna have to really pay out of pocket, and I don't have the $5,000 and some change dollars per semester to pay. And so I'm thinking negative, and I'm just like, oh my God, like, why else would she ask me? Never thinking nothing good of it, just bad. Like, oh my God, she's already taken so much away from me. What is it now? Like, I'm already going to lose my job in 30 days. I don't foresee any other department here that I could work for. I have to find me another job. But the decision I made, I said that I was getting 12-week severance. I said I was going to double up on my classes the following semester that was going to come up. And so within the next semester, I was going to go full-time, finish out all my classes, graduate, and then look for a job within my respective field. So because I decided to do that, I was like fine with it. So then Back to, I'm walking in the hallway after I got my layoff papers, and then she came in and she told me that meet her in the office. So I walk to her office. I walk in, move to the side. She walks in, she sits at her desk, and then she's like, close the door. So I close the door, and I'm like, I feel like I'm in the principal's office, and I'm like, bad news, right? More bad news. So she was like, okay. She's like, I don't want to overwhelm you. I know you just got, a really, really bad news right now. I'm like, yep. And she was like, and I would hope this is a great time, but, I don't want to put too much on you, impose too much on you. But she's like, I have a position that's going to open up. And I wanted to offer it to you. And this is why I asked you a while back what you were going to school for, to see if you were a great fit. And she's like, I think you're going to be a great fit for this position based on how you handle everything within the building, how you uphold your position, and the relationships that you've built with those within the organization, the clients, as well as our vendors. So I think this would be a great role for you. So you're not taking away my tuition reimbursement? And so she didn't say, that's what I said to myself. So I'm sitting there smiling at her, and I was like so happy, so happy. And I looked at her, I'm like, okay. She's like, so I'm not gonna actually make a decision right now. I know you just got this bad news, and you may want to talk to your family. So think about it, go home, and you can get back to me sometime this week. And she was like, what are your thoughts? And I'm like, I mean, of course I want to take it. But then I asked her, I'm like, what happened to the other young lady that's gonna have this position? Because I don't need anything temporary. And she was like, no, she's moving to another department. Whatever, so this department is going to be available. We rarely hire anyone within the organization, normally something outside, but because of the relationships that you've had with those around you, and we can trust that you're not going to be biased within that, I can trust that you'll do a great job at this role. I could not believe it, y'all. I was shook. Okay, shook. I wanted to jump for joy. I remember the first thing I did is I sat at my desk, and I didn't even tell my friend. I text my my pastor, and I sent him the layoff paper. He's like, what's that? I'm like, I got laid off. And he was like, oh man, sis, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, but I just got offered a position within my desired field that I'm going to college for. And he was like, you're lying. He was like, are you serious? And I'm like, yes. And I was like, he's like, that's God. I'm like, it is. I'm like, the only problem is this is somebody that I always said I wouldn't work for. He's like, well, God is going to trust you. Do you trust him? And of course I trusted God. And I really think that God was doing it to show me, as I've grown in this position, it was just to kind of show me how you can have a perception of someone in the outside looking in, but once you get in that position, that your perception can change. So God looked out for me, y'all. God got me this job, and this job has been a blessing to me. The things that I remember, the conversations that I had with my manager that day in the break room when I was talking to her about the conversation I had with my daughter, about not being able to spend time with my daughter. I remember I would never get out of work before daylight. Like, it would be dark by the time I get out this building. And as I started my new role, which would have started in 3 weeks, I would have gotten laid off in a month, but I started my position, I think it was like 2 weeks, because I started to train with the young lady for 2 weeks, and then she left within that 30-day notice as well. So I was able to get off work 5:30 every day, so it was still daylight outside. I was able to go get my daughter. We started to have dinner together at the house. We could eat together. It was just amazing. It's just been amazing, and it's just crazy to me, because I think back on it, that was a while before I remember taking my daughter's birthday off for the first time. I was able to take her birthday off, and just being able to enjoy her on her birthday. Not too long after I started the position, the pandemic started. It was less than a year, and then the pandemic started. And God is just amazing how God can plan out your life for you, because I didn't foresee the pandemic happening, but God knew, because the position that I had, even if I didn't get laid off, I could not have held that position during the pandemic, because no one is on site, and there was no need for them to do employee engagement. There wouldn't be anything for me to do. I wouldn't be working with vendors, because there's no vendors coming in. Like, the position would have been eliminated. I would have been laid off anyways. So God was just truly amazing to give me this role, give me enough time to work with on site with the manager, enough time to bring me up to speed on how to do my job, and then just send me home and allow me to work from home and to be home with my daughter during the pandemic. I wouldn't be able to do that if I was on site. I wouldn't be able to do that. I would have to find someone for her to be with every single day. But God did that for me. Just being able to take time off and being salaried the whole entire time, having unlimited vacation to take advantage of that, like just the benefits that come with it. My daughter loves the position that I have. She tells me like it's just been so flexible with just being a mom. It makes things so much easier. I can do homework with my daughter. Everything that I wanted. It's basically everything that I wanted. I still get my weekends off. And I just thank God. And the other day I was sitting, I haven't gone to church in so long, but the other day I actually went to church on Sunday, and they had two, it was a couple and this young lady that was telling her testimony, and it was more so of how they had to trust God's word. Like God spoke a word over their life, and it took years, but it came to pass. And it truly reminded me of how good God is. And that came to me because it's like God said it, and because you trusted and you believed it, you kept holding on to that word, and you kept trusting and reminding God, and it actually came to pass one day. And it just reminded me, girl, trust God. Trust God, trust God, always trust God. You may not see it, you don't know how it's going to happen, but believe me, if I tell you, if God's going to do it, God said he's going to do it, he's truly going to do it for you. So that is my story on how God came through for me, and how I had faith and trusting God. I fasted my way through such a hard process at work, and I am in a role now that I love, that gives me the flexibility to be a mom. I still can get my weekends to do things. I remember there were times I was getting calls on the weekends because things weren't going well in my old position, but now I can freely turn my phone off and know, if something happens, it can wait until Monday. And it's just a position that I needed. So trust God. I know this video was long, guys, but I hope it helps somebody. If God spoke a word over your life, trust him that it'll come to pass. I'm sitting on a word right now. I am sitting on a word right now that God spoke to me. And I am going to be living proof that I trust God that is going to come to pass. And I will share that with y'all once that is fulfilled. But I'm trusting and holding on to that word because God's going to do it for me and my child. God is going to come through for us in an amazing... Yeah, my camera could be so disrespectful at times. So I did run out of memory, but I'm back. So yeah, during that process, it really... Sitting in church that last Sunday really just... It was a reminder that, God is still able. God is still God is still out here working on people's lives. God is still doing the things that he promised us. And it was just a refresher. Definitely a refresher and a great memory to have. And God just left an imprint on my heart since that moment. And knowing that sometimes I go through things, and I'm not an outwardly person where if I'm going through something, I'll probably distance myself from you. But I'm not going to call you up like, hey, I'm going through this. I'm just not that person. I don't like to bear my burdens on others. And it's probably not the best thing that I should do. But I just wanted to let someone know here to just trust God. Just trust God. Pray about it. Pray for the things that you need. God will give you and grant you the desires of your heart if it's within his will for you. And if he doesn't do it, just know that he has something better for you. So trust.
All right, y'all. So it wouldn't be right if I left the video here and didn't actually wrap it up this way. I would say, like the last week that I worked in the department, I do remember after handling my last project that I had, event that I hosted for the department, that my manager did come in and called me into her office, and she wanted to kind of talk to me and give me farewell. And she did mention it to me. She was like, I just wanted to call you and let you know, like, you restored my faith in God. And I was looking at her like, She was like, you know what? I watch you fast throughout this entire time, and I would always, we make little jokes about when you're fasting and the things that you would eat, but it really restored and reminded me how much faith I used to have in God, and how I, walked away so much away from my faith. And she said, seeing that, what God is doing for you and God has done for you throughout this time just made me remember how much I need to go back to where God, took me from, because she found out how much money I was making, and it went from her not giving me that little tiny increase that I was getting to God blessing me abundantly within my new position. And so God really came through for me, and I know it did something to her heart. And it's just as much as God left the imprint on my heart based on that situation and how he came through for me, I know God touched her heart, and at some point God will always bring it to her remembrance on how he came through. So always remember, like I said, I was doing the job unto the Lord and not just to her. But it's always a reminder as well that there's others that are watching us on our faith and our walk as well. And sometimes, I am oftentimes reminded of that within my decision and how I treat others. So if you've ever done me wrong and I didn't react a certain way after I got saved, just know it was God. Thank God for that, because the old me, Lord, I used to be this fast queen. I would give business. But after getting saved, I just let things go. It's not even worth it. But I realize that people have so much more respect for me and love for me because I don't react the way I used to react. So just know that people are watching, man, and that you truly have to walk with Christ and in Christ in each and everything that you do. So that's the best way to wrap that up, and that's what I learned during that situation, and I definitely want to thank God. Back to the story.
So trust God, guys. Thank you so much for watching this long video. And again, let me see here. If you watch this video to the end, don't forget to comment down below, I trust God, and know that God will do those things for you. Again, I will have more videos on my journey with Christ and so much more coming on as God releases on my heart to put it out there. But I thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to this channel if you feel that this information is worthy to you. But I will see y'all in the next video. Peace. Peace.